No post-gym thoughts today, but we're out here in the great outdoors, and this is actually something I wanted to talk to you guys about. So, continuing the conversation about men's mental health. Now, there's a lot of different outlets men could use, a lot of different resources, some conventional, some unconventional when it comes to mental health and, just fixing yourself, right? Because the reality is, and unfortunately so, but it really is no one's responsibility to help you with your mental health. Now, do we want to foster environments that encourage other people to help us? Yeah, sure. But for the most part, gentlemen, it's really on you. Like, you have to make the decision to want to work on your mental health, to want to change your perspective on things and see life for what it could be rather than what you think it is. With that said, here are a couple things that I use that helped me, and I'm not saying you have to do this, right? First of all, I'm not a psychologist, right? I'm just someone who damn near jumped in front of a train back in 2018 and almost took his own life. And 2025, a couple of years later, I'm modeling and I'm acting and I'm living a life that I genuinely want to live. And none of that's to brag. I think more so I say that because it's a testament to how one can change if they're really willing and open to change. But oftentimes, and unfortunately, the only times we do change is when we're faced with those sort of challenges, per se. But the reality of it is, gentlemen and ladies too, if you're watching, we don't have to go through the darkest nights to be willing to change and willing to grow as individuals. We can, if we're open and we're willing to changing perspectives and learning, then we can foster change without going through traumatic events. With that being said, I found my most solace, my greatest peace in nature. Coming out here for 2 mile runs during the summer, sitting around here during the fall and just taking in nature. I find so much peace and joy just watching birds fly, watching, peaceful moments between human beings and being by the water. I have to say, between the water and the arts, those two things certainly saved my life. But as far as resources are concerned, aside from the conventional resources that we often talk about, gentlemen, I encourage you to journal. I encourage you, even if you're not a songwriter or anything, I encourage you to write something. Because the reality is, when you're more open and more fluent with your words, you're actually able to assess your emotions in a more precise manner. And that in turn helps you overcome those blockages that you might be facing. So I don't want to go on too much of a rant here. The last thing I would say is, personally, sometimes I struggle between being a cynic and a humanist. Sometimes I really do see the beauty in human beings as well as myself, and I see the propensity we all have as individuals to be caring, to be kind, to be creative, to be nurturing, all of these things. But I do have to admit and say that the cynic in me also notices and is aware of some of the cruelty that humans are capable of as well. And that's disregarding historical facts, right? Like, I don't need to go through a deep history dive with y'all. Y'all already know. But for the most part, I want to leave y'all with this. This is the eternal struggle all human beings will go through. The fight between seeing the love and the joy in people and acknowledging the cruelty that can be passed down from one generation to another generation and affecting all of us. So, with all that in mind, it would be insanely hypocritical of me if I told you to stop being a cynic. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Sometimes I hate the fuck out of people. And when I say that, I don't mean I hate them in terms of me wanting to cause harm or anything like that. But I think just going through my own experiences as a Franco-Haitian American in America, being, being misaligned by whites, and then having also African Americans um, treat me like shit, just to be frank, simply because I'm Haitian, could definitely do a number on you. But what I would say is this: in the face of all of those things, sometimes it is best to choose to see the good in people and be willing to try and reach that no matter how hard it is. And that's not me saying you have to force yourself to, get along with people who genuinely hate you. That's not reality. But what I would say is, though people may look similar to those that hate you, oftentimes there's a possibility and chance that they may not be the enemy for real. So, in closing, and I kind of went on a riff, so I apologize for that. But in closing, gentlemen, Men's Mental Health Month doesn't have to stop in June. because a lot of y'all do this too. Y'all talk about mental health and then stop talking about it for the rest of the year. It doesn't have to be this way. Fellas, we can become better individuals. I'm not saying become better for women. I'm not saying become better for clout or, whatever you want to say. I'm saying become better for yourself because you deserve it the most. You deserve peace, man. You deserve joy. You deserve to smile. How hard, how long it took me to be able to genuinely smile after both my brothers died? I will never give this smile up ever again. Life can be beautiful, but it's only if you work it. Who said this line? Life could be depending on how you dress her. I won't say his name. He doesn't deserve me to say his name, but think about that. Anyway, peace and love.